Sorry, hold on, man. I'm sorry, I want to say something. I'm getting ready to speak. Okay, I'm done. All right, have you ever noticed? Have you ever noticed? I don't. Hopefully, you can see that. That's a watermelon seed. Have you ever? Woo, have you ever noticed that a watermelon seed has everything in it to be a watermelon? In other words, is there any kind of watermelon school out there that teaches watermelon how to, okay, now when you get a certain age, make sure you grow up to be nice and red, and make sure you have a lot of other seeds in there too. Are they taught how to make sure that the rind is green, and some rinds have stripes in them? Sometimes the watermelon has a solid color on the outside. Is there some kind of watermelon school we don't know about? The fact is that inside a seed is everything that's needed for that thing to be all that it was created to be. Everything. So there is no watermelon school, where the little seedlings go to school every morning and are taught how to be a watermelon. They just be. Why? Because what's in them, everything that they need to be the best watermelon, is all inside of them.
Same thing with this grass. It learned from the seeds.
So based off of nature, we as humans shouldn't have to look anywhere else to find out who we are or what our purpose is. Now, slavery has done a number on us as black people, especially when it comes to our history. But that does not mean that there are no clues inside of us that point to who we are or what our purpose is. But sadly, we will look all over the place outside of us trying to figure out who we are. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? Now, I know you are a fake plant, but I'm telling you, you are me. You took my identity from me. You're me. Okay, so for some time now, if you've been on social media for some time, you have noticed that this next trend, that we're going to talk about, is one that takes us once again way over Africa and lands us in Russia. Okay, so there's this trend that's been going on for some time where individuals have looked to Russian iconographies, and these are images that portray various people in the Bible, such as Jesus, such as Mary, what have you. Some of the apostles, such as Peter, John, and some of the other apostles. Some of them even have like the 12 disciples and all of them up there. If you look at some of these images, you will notice that they have dark skin. At least that's what it appears, that they have dark skin. So what has happened is over the years is that people have looked at these images and have come, and when I say people, I'm talking about black folks now. Russians aren't saying this. Black folks are saying this, have come to the conclusion that, see, this is proof. This proves our claim that that's our people as well. These people in Russia, at some point, they were us. And so, for those who are Hebrew, for example, they use this as a way to support the claim that these were Hebrews and you had Hebrews that were in Russia. So therefore, if I'm a Hebrew and I'm looking at these images and they're dark, kind of like me, then that means that they are people too. All right. So this is the logic that's used to make the claim that these are your people, even though we're in Russia. But here's the thing. We're going to take a look at this claim a little bit closer here because we want to make sure we're looking at all the facts. We're not doing a presupposition, and we did a video. In case you haven't seen that video, I want you to click on the link that you see on the screen there. We did a video talking about presupposition, and in short, again, a presupposition is basically when someone makes a claim, when you start off making a claim, and then, and you state it as factual, what that individual will do is that they will look for anything that aligns with that claim. So, for example, again, when this is an example I use in my video, for example, I can make the claim that red is the best color, right? Red is the best color. You cannot tell me any different. It is the best color. That is my claim. And so I go into a room of 20 people. And as I go and ask each and every individual, I'll say, what is the best color? Some people are going to say red. Some people are going to say pink. Some people are going to say orange. Some people are going to say black, so forth and so on. So in order to support my claim that red is the best color, I'm going to skip over the blue people, the green people, the purple people, and all of that and say, look, see, all of these people that I gathered are supporting my claim that red is the best color because they said it. But you're ignoring all the other people that were in a room who also had who also gave to that conversation and declaring that blue was the other color or the best color or so forth and so on. But likewise, you will see this all in many of these claims that are out here in the social media streets where people will cherry pick things that align with their belief. But what happens is they ignore all the other facts on the table. So what we're going to do with this particular claim, as far as are these black Russian iconographies, are they in fact our people? Well, let's go back. What we're going to do now is I'm going to pull up on the screen. I think the best place to start will be to go to what are the oldest Russian iconographies. What do they look like? So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on the screen and let's take a look and see what they look like here. All right. So give me just a moment here. Here we go. Okay. So this is on Wikipedia, and I know people got something to say about Wikipedia and they'll say, oh, Wikipedia is garbage, this, that, or whatever. But the thing with Wikipedia is that give you links to the actual sources. And that is, so Wikipedia ultimately, like we try to do on this platform, ultimately will leave it up to you to do your additional research on all of this stuff here. All right. So from what we see here on the screen, I'll make it a little bit bigger. These are what the oldest Russian iconographies look like. Okay. So I want you to pay close attention. Now, this is going all the way back to like 1,000, the year 1000. All right. They're going from 1000 to 1130. All right, so this is, I'm assuming this is Jesus. Now, when you look at the screen here, when you look at this right here, yes, does he have dark skin? Yes, he does. He has dark skin. All right, or at least the face looks dark. Okay, same thing with the hands. I can't make it any bigger than that. I can actually. Hold on. Okay, here we go. And I'm glad I did that. Okay, so anyway, so does the skin appear to be dark? Yes. All right. Let's look at the hands. Hands appear to be dark. Yes. Yes. Look at the feet. Hey, definitely black. Okay. So a lot of people will look at this and conclude that, okay, so therefore this is a black man. That's what they're trying to depict here. But wait, there's more. When you look at the features, see, this is what people overlook here. Now look at the features. When you look at the nose, I mean, we're looking at now we're getting into phenotype. Now we're getting into the features, the eyes and the nose especially, because again, we make a big deal about the nose on the Sphinx, right? We make the big deal about the nose on the, on the Aztec statues. And we come to the conclusion that these Aztec statues were in fact black people because look at the width of the nose. Okay, so we got to keep that same energy when we look at these images, right? Right. So when you look at the nose here, that is not an African nose. That's not a black nose. Okay, that is purely European. So anyway, we're going to move right along here. We're going to look at some other images as well. Again, we're starting at the beginning. All right, now here's some other ones. Now, you can argue, again, darker skin. The nose is here. They can be black folks. I've seen black folks look like this. Okay, I've definitely seen black folks look like this. So I ain't gonna, I ain't mad at you if you come to this conclusion that these clearly are black people. But again, this is Jesus in the background supposedly. Notice the hair again. Now again, you have some people like in places like Northern Africa, that will have hair like this. Black folks that, that came through the transatlantic slave trade, many of us, I'm talking about if you pure African, I mean, if you manage to be able to maintain that, many of us aren't going to have hair like this. Yes, again, I know someone's getting ready to interject and go into the comment section. Yes, you do have blacks that do have this hair like this. But if you go back to Africa, again, when you go like Ethiopia, Syria, northern part of Africa, yes, you will find hair like this. Absolutely. But when you focus on where the slaves came from, which is what they call sub-Saharan Africa, many of them did not have hair like this. Okay. Same thing. Look at the nose. Same thing. Look at the nose. Look at the nose here. Look at the nose here. These are clearly European features. All right. We're building up to something, and I'm actually show a video as well of someone who's a collector, and they're going to get, oh yeah, so that was Peter and Paul. Okay, so now we're at so that first one I showed you, that was at 1050, the year 1050, and they said overpainted in 1699. All right, this is 1050. So these two were like in the same year. All right, now let's go to 1100. So now we're about 50 years out. Now, this is St. George. I don't know who this, I don't know who this is. Because, the Catholic Church had, and the Orthodox Christian Church, everybody was a saint. Just like everybody's a reverend, today. But anyway, let's take a look at this. Now, this was this was painted 50 years out from the first one. It's white. Okay. Now, I don't know who painted this, by the way. But anyway, now the baby, you can argue. I'm assuming this is Mary and Jesus. Now, when you look at the baby, one can argue, okay, he rocking a short fro. But again, let's look at Mary again. Look at the features. Those are not African features. Those are not. And I'm keep on saying Africa too. All right. Did I click on this? Okay, here's another one. Same year. 50 years out. Oh, they're white. That's interesting. Clearly they're white. All right, let's move on here. All right, so this is Theotokos of Vladimir, year 1100. 50 years out again. Clearly white. Same features. Same exact features as the features in the first one that we showed, the oldest one that's on record, which is this one right here. Same features, very fine features, very European features. All right. All right. So now we're going to move up, and now we're at 1130 to 1200. And here we go. Now, do they appear to be darker? Yes, they appear to be darker. But again, pay attention to the features, the facial structure. These are European facial structures, everything you see here. All right. Now, in this case here, not only is Mary's face dark, and we know it's Mary because she's holding a little baby. The babies back then, the depictions of Jesus, baby Jesus, I always have him looking hard, like he don't work 60. He pulled a 60-hour week. Anyway, but again, notice that all of Mary is darker. All of her. So it's not just her skin, but it's also everything she's wearing. Well, there's a reason for that, and that's what we're going to get into. So here's an example where we're not just focused on the face, but notice that all of her body is much darker, like as if that wasn't originally how it was. Because typically in most paintings, the face is going to stand out. This seems as if whatever paint they use, it's fading. You know what I'm saying? So that's what appears here, where versus the different colors that they use here, it darkened a little bit, but not by much, but nonetheless it's darker. But again, look at the hair. This is an angel. Okay, there you go. And we're just going to look at through all of these because I want you to see all of it. I told you we're going to put as many of the facts as possible on the the table so we can all look at it. Now, again, facial features. I know the first thing many people are looking at is, oh, look at that hair. See, he's got a fro. That's proof. He's got an afro. So clearly, this is a black man right here. Clearly. I mean, look at the hair, Dwayne. Come on, man. Yeah, I'm looking at the hair, and you see how curly it is. Okay. Do we have 4C hair? Many of us do, yes. Do black folks have other types of hair? Yes, we do. Okay. So please, again, do not jump in the comment section. Oh, Dwayne, but we have more than 4C. We got other, we come in all. Okay. I understand. I understand. But I'm just pointing certain things out. Okay. So you look at the face again, face, the way the phenotype, the face here, again, that reflects a European face, especially the nose, especially the small mouth, the small lips, all of that. Okay. That's St. George. We don't know who I don't know who he is. Okay. So here we go. Now here, once again, now this is, forgot. This is called the sign, St. Sophia. It was in St. Sophia Cathedral. So I don't know if this is supposed to be Mary or St. Sophia. I would assume it's Mary here. Anyway. All right. European features, same thing, lighter. All right. Let's go here. And don't worry, we're looking, and notice we're looking at the ones that appear to be darker, and we're looking at the ones that are lighter. We're looking at both. So unlike a lot of the pages or YouTube platforms you may look at where they just henpeck the ones that they want you to see, we're looking at all of them so that we can get a much more whole picture here. All right. So this is the angel with golden hair. All right. Clearly European. I don't even think we got to click on that one. All right. Here's another one. This is Alusa. All right. One could kind of sort of say, oh, look at that. That's braids right there, bruh. Come on. She got them hard. Those are braids right there. That's what she has. Okay. So let's stop for a second because let's just say these are braids. Let's just say that for a second. Okay. I'm willing to play along with this. If these are braids, then the next step that you need to take is this. The culture at that time where this painting was created. Again, this was, are they giving us the year here? Hold on for a sec. Yeah, that's Mary, by the way. Okay, well, we just know it's between 1130 and 1200. Let's just say if this is like locks, like black folks wear, like in Africa or in the Caribbean or whatever. Or here in the States for that matter. Let's just say those are locks she's wearing. Since we're talking about Russia, the next thing we have to do, if we're going to do a proper investigation, is that we have to look at that particular culture in Russia where this painting was created. And let's see if we can find a trend of other people wearing locks in their hair or braids, if you will, that are exact to how black folks wear their braids and hair. We got to find that trend. You can't just look at a painting and guesstimate. You have to see, does this reflect the culture of the individual that was present at that time where this painting originated? So you got to look at that too. You can't just jump to that conclusion. But anyway, darker appearance. Yes, absolutely. Okay. But again, look at the facial types. Same thing. European. All right, and I can go through all these other ones here. Because I wasn't going to actually go through. I wasn't my intent to go through all of these. Now, this one, she black. She Bill Duke black, okay? She Bill Duke black, okay, which is, I think is a beautiful color. But ask yourself for a second. Do you think that the painter that painted this painting where the face looked like this? Because again, we're going to assume that this is Mary. I'm going to go back here and see, because sometimes they'll tell you. And they say Our Lady of St. Theodore. All right. So they say Our Lady of Saint Theodore. Do you think that the painter painted a painting where if these, because all of these saints, the imagery of these saints is they give a sense of hope to the people who are looking at these paintings. Do you think that the painter, if that's what they were trying to relay in their paintings, painted this saint with a dark looking scary face like this? I would think not. What this appears to be is that there's some aging that took place here. So it brings us to a whole another layer to this conversation, and that is the construction of how these paintings were made, how they were constructed. Now, right now, what I'm doing, I'm just kind of scrolling through here, and just so you can see all of these other ones. Again, just to recap, if we're not handpicking just the ones that match the claim that all these iconographies were black folks. You have to look at the whole picture. And nor can you come to the conclusion and say, well, in this year, this is where they whitewashing. Well, the next year they didn't. Well, this year they're whitewashing. And the next year they're not. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. So in order to bring some clarity, what do we have to do? We had to go all the way to the beginning. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So you'll see some of these, they are, the people appear to be darker skinned. They appear to be that way. But then you'll see in the same year or a few years later that they're white. Then they go black. Then they go dark. Then they go white, so forth and so on. You understand what I'm saying? So far, we're kind of, pun intended, we're painting a picture here where we're including more of the facts, if you will, to this claim, that these Russian iconographies were in fact depicting black folks. And so what we did was we went back to the beginning and we just went through and just see, I don't know about that. So the next thing, what this leads us to is this, is now we're going to take a trip to this museum in Massachusetts where an individual, he's a collector and he's been collecting Russian iconographies for years. And he's going to explain a little bit how these paintings were made. We'll be stopping periodically as he's kind of going through his stuff. And then I have a couple of articles too that I want to show you as well so that we can get an even clearer picture as well. Okay. And then we're going to ask a basic question here. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and pull this up here on the screen and let's go.
Blood and guts aren't depicted in the icon. It's always about the highest order of heroism, the highest order of sacrifice, the highest order of saintliness.
These are the pieces that for centuries were anchors for spirituality in Russia. Icons installed magnificently in churches, privately in homes, and even quietly on soldiers' lapels. They are considered a pathway to prayer.
You'd approach the icon and you would see something that is expected to be seen. You don't want to be surprised. And that familiarity leads you to a contemplative prayer state that is very spiritual to the believer.
Kent Russell is the CEO and curator of the Museum of Russian Icons. Its collection of some 1,000 pieces dating from the 14th century to the present is the largest collection of icons outside of Russia.
Give me a sense of how these pieces are created, and this is a piece that dates to 1600.
You start with a piece of wood. Wood is a sacred material. Jesus was a carpenter. Then it's egg tempera paint, egg yolk, egg tempera, the origin of life. Everything in an icon has a sacred symbolism, and it's made during prayer in a very prescribed ritualized manner.
As far as the icons are concerned, I didn't know what one was.
This entire collection, not to mention the pristine museum that houses it, is, for lack of a better term, the hobby of now retired plastics magnate Gordon Langton. And it all began with this icon.
Okay, so I want to stop here for a second because I want you to take note. There's one, and It's one that I've seen floating around the internet. I don't have it in front of me, right now. But it's one that depicts Mary and baby Jesus, right? And there's an article, there's a couple of articles I'm going to point to, it's a Russian iconography website. Okay, so again, you got to go right to the source. Don't go to Jerome and them. Okay, go right to the source. If you're going to claim these are your people, then you're going to have to go to the Russians. Okay, if you're going to claim the Russians are your people too, or these were the people that, that this came, basically these are your people, but it's Russian iconography, then go to the Russians so you can get the straight answer, right? So, like I said, so I have a couple of articles I'm going to show you on that. All right, so I want you to take note of what you see on your screen here. What this article that I'm going to show you, and I'll probably jump to it in a moment here. Let me see. Actually, I'll just bring it up here because they talk about it right here. Okay. So we're going to go here. We'll go here in a moment. Okay. But take note here. I'm going to see if I can make it any bigger. You notice that is in layers. Okay. So there's the basic painting that you see right here on the screen, right? You got the painting, and then it's like it's raised. It's like there's a painting, and then on top of it, you got some type of metal that's on top of it. It almost reminds me of, you remember the game Operation? You had like the face, but then there's another layer stacked on top of it. That's what it reminds me of. So you're going to see some of the Russian iconographies. One of the things that you'll notice is a common thread, not with all of it, but many of them, they were painted in layers like this. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because this is what contributes to, and just like any other painting, over time, if you don't take care of it, the paint is going to fade. And so when it fades, what happens? Especially if you have it constructed like this, so in this particular case, if the face started out as white and it fades, it's going to be more pronounced, because if whatever this is, if this is some kind of metal or something like that, that's going to stay consistent. But the paint itself is not. So the darker faces are going to be more pronounced. You understand what I'm saying? That's why it sticks out like that. All right. So, but I wanted to point that out to you, that, you're going to, as you look at some of these Russian iconographies, this is how they're made. They're made in layers like this. So that's why some layers appear to fade and others do not. All right. So let's go.
Found at a Russian flea market in 1990.
I picked it up and I decided I'd ask if I could buy it. And they told me I could buy it for $28, I think it was.
As the owner of Nipro, a plastics manufacturer with dealings in Russia, Langton became enamored with icons, and a collection was born.
Do you consider yourself a religious person?
I have always gone to church. The degree of being religious is, questionable.
In his spare time, Langton made himself an icon expert. He acquired most of his pieces in Germany, where a flood of icons safely landed during Stalin's anti-religious regime.
I brought them back, and they went on the walls of our home. And when it got to be 100, my wife said, "No more." And so I started trying to figure out what to do.
So when we're talking about the paintings, it's not just the paintings. You also got to look at Russian artwork, religious artwork specifically, because you can't, remember, going back to my example, you can't just henpeck parts of somebody else's culture and just the parts that resonate with you. You're going to say that's yours. You got to look at the entire culture. You got to look at the entire picture. So when you look at what you see on the screen right now, these are statues that, I don't know what year these things were made. But when you look at them up close, these aren't black folks. These are not black folks. Okay. Okay. So we'll just stop it there. That's pretty much the whole video there. But I wanted you to see that as you know, as much as that video is possible, because I want you to see the whole picture. In other words, you saw some images of Russian iconographies that were of dark folks, just like we started this whole conversation, right? That they look dark. But then in the same year, you'll see some that were white. And then they'll go back to dark, then white or whatever. It's all kind of, it goes back and forth. Let me pull this article up here. Here we go. And this is where, so they have a page here talking about Russian iconographies, all right? And why they look the way they look. So again, you go to the experts, okay? I don't know. I'm not an expert on Russian artwork, okay? I will tell you straight out the bat. I am not. So I can't look at something and say, hey, that look like my cousin. That's my cousin. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. No, let me actually read their culture and what they are saying about it, all right? So here we go right here. This is under the section of traditions and repetition. Okay, so right here it says here, and I'll highlight it. It says Russian icons were painted in layers, beginning with a dark brown background. Forms were delineated using reddish arches, or I should say orches, hope I'm saying that right, and a white lead. Gold and gilding were employed to symbolize the light of the heavens. When the gold was out of reach, the color yellow was used as a stand-in. Irina Osipova notes that the color gray was never used, as a mixing of black and white was seen as inappropriate and the color of uncertainty and emptiness. Let's read that again. All right. So they say here again, she said the color gray was never used. How do you make gray? White and black. All right. As the mixing of black, which represents evil in their construct, in Russian construct, black represented evil and white represents good, was seen as inappropriate and the color of uncertainty and emptiness. So these Russians that our people are trying to identify with, they're saying that, no, we don't mess with black because it represents evil. So if that's what they think, and that's their conclusion about the color black, why would they paint their top saints black? Why would they do that? You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, I think I have another one here. Right here. Let me see. This one goes, and this is showing, and take note as I'm kind of going through this artwork here. Take note that you'll see some of them that look white and others that look black. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. This is it. All right. Religious iconography from the Eastern Orthodox world features gold to represent the kingdom of heaven. In later works, metallic and yellow paint was replaced by highly worked silver and gold coverings. This process is called cloisonne, a technique through which small compartments known as cloisons, I hope I'm saying that right, made of gold or silver wires are soldered to a metal base. The cloisons are usually filled with a colorful enamel powder, which is fixed to the base in a kiln. I never could say that word. With pearls and semi-precious stones. So this is what they're talking about right here. You remember I said you got the painting, that's where this white space is, that's where the painting would be. And then around it would be this thing that you see right here, what they're talking about. So even though when it's made of stones or precious metals, they're not going to fade as quickly as whatever you're using for paint. Paint is always going to fade over time. You know, if you go to in Rome or whatever, you look at a lot of the paintings that are there, they are constantly repainting over those things because paint over time does fade, and it's due to, the climate and all this other stuff that's in the air. You know what I'm saying? But if it's metal, metal kind of, for the most part, will stay consistent unless it's exposed to like water or, things like that, right? Moisture, things like that. But paint will fade. So what the case that we're kind of building here, so as you can see here, is that what we're looking at, there's a extremely high probability here of what we're looking at are faded paintings. And so, but the gold and the stones and all that they use, they don't fade. So if someone is looking at this painting, these pictures right here, and you just look at it real quick, you would come to the conclusion, oh, these are black people. Why would you say that? Because it stands out a lot. The darkness of their face, it stands out even more, right? But again, look at the phenotype. Look at the faces. These are not African faces. These are not black folks' faces. All right. Here's another one that appears to be, have created around the same time. Jesus is clearly white on this one. So why is that not included in the claim that somehow these Russian iconographies were depicting black folks? Now, I'm going to show you an example where they were depicting black people, okay? I'm going to show you that in a moment here. But first, what I want to do is this, because you notice I keep mentioning Africa here. And, in talking about specifically, and I've done videos on this, where when you look at the Hebrews, for example, I'm not going to sit up here and say all these individuals out here who claim to be Hebrew have a hatred towards Africa, because I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true at all. I think there's enough evidence that prove the opposite, that you do have many who love Africa and embrace Africa. But the belief system in of itself, through and through, when you actually look at it, it distincts itself. It puts a separation between their identity as Hebrews and Africa in of itself. In fact, you'll find many who will say we are not African at all. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And so they just completely separate themselves from it. And so what I'm seeing with this trend, as far as looking at these Russian iconographies, is just another example of how many of these individuals want to separate themselves from Africa, to the point that they will go all the way to Russia. All right. So here's the next thing that I want to challenge you on. So since we're going to look at artwork, and artwork depicts history, let's take a look at, let's do a quick Google search, and let's see if we can find any imagery, African imagery, that depicts Jesus or the disciples. And again, ancient artwork. That's the key. Ancient. I ain't talking about anything recent. Ancient artwork. So let me go ahead and pull up my search here for Google. All right. Ancient. Oh, I got one right here. It's already up, man. All right. Ancient. I did a search for ancient African depictions of Jesus artwork. All right. So let me go ahead and pull this up. Again, this is just Google images, which is going to be pretty accurate. So we're looking for ancient images. All right. We're going to be thorough on this, okay? Because some will come up, and we're going to learn about that, okay? Because like I said, again, we're looking at all of it. All right. So I'm going to put a bookmark on this, because we're going to get to Ethiopian artwork. We're going to get to that. Okay. We're going to look at that, because that should be considered in this conversation. All right. So let's continue here as we go through ancient. We're doing a search right now for ancient African artwork or depictions of Jesus. We're just doing a search here. I know I got someone in the crowd already. One of the viewers, well, they took it all out. See, Google filtered it all out. Okay, do you have proof of that? All right, just put your evidence out. All right, so we're still looking here. I'm looking. Any ancient artwork. All right, so just as a point of reference, let's do a search for ancient African artwork. Okay. All right. Let's do a search for ancient African artwork, just to give you an idea of what ancient African artwork would look like. All right. So we're looking at ancient examples of ancient African artwork. All right. This is just our frame of reference here. And if some of you out there, maybe you have taken African artwork classes, in university or college, or even in high school for that matter. And you should be very familiar with, kind of get a general sense and idea of how the artwork is constructed and the different things that were being portrayed in African artwork and all of that. So you should have a pretty good idea. And I want you to ask yourself, have you ever seen any ancient artwork, African artwork, that depicts Jesus? Now, when I say Africa, in this question that I'm asking, I'm purposely excluding Ethiopia. But I'm excluding Ethiopia because Ethiopia, we're going to talk about Ethiopia separately. Ethiopia is part of Africa. I'm not saying it ain't, okay? But outside of Ethiopia, have you seen any depictions in artwork, in African art, ancient African artwork of Jesus and his disciples? I have not. So for those who are out here claiming that Christianity was something that was birthed out of Africa, again, let me say this. Was Christianity, can one make the argument that Christianity was birthed out of Africa? Yes, because most of the Old Testament and the entire New Testament was written in Egypt. The Septuagint, which is the New Testament, that was written in Egypt. Egypt is in Africa, right? Right. However, Egypt at that time was under the authority of Greece and Rome. Do you understand what I'm saying? So everything that we know biblical that came out, it came out of Egypt. However, see, that's the part people leave out. It was being filtered automatically by Europeans. So yeah, it came out of Africa, but it wasn't necessarily Africans that were in control of any of that narrative. You understand what I'm saying? So and to prove this, like I said, again, you got to look at the cultures throughout Africa and see, okay, if Christianity was birthed out of Africa by Africans, then just like in their artwork, they depict fishermen, they depict marriages, they portray, whatever their spiritual practices are. They show children, they show elders and all this other stuff. Every aspect of their lives are depicted in their artwork. This is Africa, but this is any other culture too. Europe, whatever, in the Asian countries, Central South America, all that. You can, in Aztec culture and all of that. Who they are, they will depict, and what they believe, they will depict in their artwork. So, but when we look at African artwork, the one thing that we don't see in ancient African artwork is anything at all to do with Jesus or his disciples. Nothing at all. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we're going to go back again, now that you got a frame of reference, and we're looking for ancient African depictions of Jesus artwork. That's what we're looking for. And we're not finding anything. Absolutely nothing. Now you'll find paintings, right? But these aren't ancient paintings like this one here. This is not ancient. Clearly that's something that I think that's supposed to be George Floyd. I ain't laughing at, you know what I'm saying? Now, what was interesting about this though, what you see on the screen is George Floyd, the Russian Orthodox Church, they had issues with this. They were like, no, they ain't. No, you going too far. Okay, so anyway, I'm trying to show you something. Anyway, let's see. So nothing. Now, if you have links that you can provide, put them in the chat, put them in the comment section, or email them to me. Okay, so there you go. All right, so we have shown we can't find anything at all ancient African artwork that depicts Jesus or his disciples. We can't find any of it. All right. Let me see what else here. Okay. Now let's go to Ethiopia. Okay. Now this is something that I found to be quite interesting as well. Because number one, what would has to be established. Oh, you know what? Let me show you this here. Hold on. Let me see. Before we get to Ethiopia. If I can find this, hold on for a second here. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Now, before we move to Ethiopia, let me show you this. Now, this is Russian iconography. All right. There's a painting of someone that was referred to as Moses the Ethiopian. All right. Now, he was depicted as a black man because he was a black man. All right. But you notice they tell you in the painting itself that he was black. There's no guessing in that. Okay, so even though, we can look at the face and see, yeah, he's got dark skin or whatever. But even in the painting, they're telling you that, yeah, he was a black man. You know, he was Saint Moses the Ethiopian. Now, again, you got to read the whole thing because this is not the Moses that is in the Bible. This is a whole nother Moses. So I would just encourage you, if you're interested, just read about this individual here. This is not the same Moses. This is a whole nother Moses here. But this Moses was one that was a convert. And then they go in, a convert to Christianity, and they talk about all, what he did and all this other stuff. But bottom line was this clearly was someone who was of Black Africa. Do you understand what I'm saying? So anyway, but I think this gives us a good segue though, because now we can get into Ethiopia. All right, that's where I was heading. All right, so how did Ethiopia come into the picture when it comes to converts? Did Christianity did it begin in Ethiopia? No, it didn't. Now, Ethiopia is in fact an ancient kingdom. It's a very old Christian kingdom. That is true. But did Christianity originate in Ethiopia? No, it did not. All right. Ethiopia was actually a convert nation. In other words, you had someone who was in Christianity that came to Ethiopia, converted the king to Christianity, and then that's how it began. All right. Now we're going to get into the details because I'm not going to just tell you. I got to show you. All right. So here we go right here. We are on the website. Again, it's called The Collectors. They deal specifically with ancient history, art history, the whole nine. All right. So let me go ahead and pull that up on the screen. Scroll down here. All right. Ethiopian Christianity is one of the Christian faith's oldest branches. All right. So here's what they say here. Here's a fun fact. Ethiopia is actually the second oldest Christian country in the world. Armenia is the first. And as you know, Armenia is not in in Africa. Okay. Ethiopian Christianity dates back to the 4th century, where King Nzana of Aksum converted to the faith of Jesus Christ. Tradition says that a Phoenician missionary named Frumentius arrived in Ethiopia with merchants. Upon his arrival in Ethiopia, Frumentius became a slave of Aksum's ruling family. He would go on and he would go on to instruct the young prince in Zana. Evidently, Frumentius' teaching moved in Zana enough to declare Christianity Aksum's official religion upon his own ascension to the throne. The new ruler may have also wanted stronger ties to the Christianized Romans. Now, this is one source, but I think I have another source here, but you can look this up. If you think, why are you just getting it from a website? I need an old book. I need you to pull up an old book. I got a whole video that I'm working on about this whole narrative that's out here that you got to get an old book in order to justify what your claims. I'm gonna do a whole video on that because there's a lot that people are missing on that. But anyway, let me see if I have another. Oh yeah, I do. So I want you to take note. This is something that we're going to get into probably later on this year. The Phoenicians. So the Phoenicians, I'll just let the cat out of the bag now. I believe, and there's a lot of evidence to show that who we know today as the Jews are actually came out of the Phoenicians. I'll get into that. That's going to be a whole nother video I do. Okay. I'm going to get into that one. But anyway, the Phoenicians are credited of converting this Ethiopian king into Christianity. And this is how you see all of these Ethiopian iconographies or whatever depicting Jesus, the disciples, and all that other stuff. But it came by way of conversion. I just wanted to kind of highlight that. And this is Frumentius right here. Frumentius, he's a Phoenician, and this is what he looked like. So Ethiopia was converted by a white man long ago. All right. Who was a Phoenician. And you can look that up. All right. So again, we're sticking all with the iconographies here. Let's see. Okay, so here's another thing I want you to take a look at. Now, if you notice on a lot of these Russian iconography paintings, right, you'll see them doing these little hand gestures. And it's not just Russian iconography. Mainly you'll see it there. You also see it in some European, other like Greek paintings and stuff as well. But with this conversation, we're talking about Russian iconographies, right? You'll see them doing these hand gestures. Again, now, reason why I'm giving you a lot of information here, because again, you can't just look at something and just conclude based off of just a quick look. If you're going to take ownership and say these are our people, then if you're making that claim, that means you're claiming all of it, not just a part of it, all of it. All right. So there's a hand gesture that you'll find throughout these Russian iconographies, right? And this is what it says here. Now, what you see here was referred to as the blessing hand. And this is what they write about it, okay? This is on the RussianIcon.com website. All right, so they said, let me read it here. It says, the blessing hand. One of the most commonly used hand gestures depicted in Eastern Orthodox icons is a so-called blessing hand. As you can see in this photo above, it represents a specific arrangement of fingers that form the letters ICXC, which stands for the first and the last letters of the Greek words, and then they give the words there, meaning Jesus Christ. Thus, the hand that blesses reproduces the name of Jesus. However, since this gesture comes from ancient times, it is often associated with classical oratory and means that the speaker is going to say something important, which can also be applicable to all icons of Jesus Christ and his saints. And then they give some other, hand gestures and stuff that you see throughout Russian iconographies. Okay. So they give you that as well. So again, so for those of you who are making this claim that these paintings depict you and your people, let me ask you something. Can you look in your own history of your grandmother, your auntie, your uncle, your cousins, or going back in any artistic depictions of your people, black folks, doing these types of hand gestures? Let me speak for my family. it ain't there. They ain't doing those hand gestures. And these hand gestures, by the way, were Greek. These were Greek hand gestures. So it brings us right back to the center thing, this point that I'm going to keep bringing up over and over again, is that you have a lot of belief systems out here that they will use black suffering as part of their narrative, but they will deny Africa. And this is just another example of it, where you have black folks that will skip entirely over Africa. They'll pick up the suffering stories, but then they want to identify with Europeans, such as in the case you got people who want to identify with the Sephardic Jews, but they're not African. Now we got our people who want to identify with Russians, but they're not African. And this speaks on a much deeper issue, which at the end of the day, it's a road called self-hate. That's basically what it is at the end of the day. And this is just another example of it, where our people, unfortunately, have engaged and continue to engage in various layers of self-hatred when it comes to your people. We've done many videos on this platform where we said, again, going back to the examples I gave at the beginning of this video, you do not have to look at anybody else. You don't need a book. You don't need any of this stuff to figure out and to discover who you are. Why? Because your creator put everything you need to know, and everything about you is already in you. I don't need to go to Russia. I don't need to look at the Sephardic Jews. I don't need to look at anybody else. Everything that I need is inside of me. And I can see by the mannerisms, the things that I express, not just me, but my wife, my family, same thing with my other people as well. There are many things that we do that are on par and aligned with the people of Africa than it is in Russia or some Sephardic Jews. It's not in alignment with them. So anyway, so here's the pro tip. Stop going to Russia to find out about your Negro history, okay? It's all in you. And my encouragement to you is please take the time and discover it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys got something out of this video. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.